Right. Is that better? Yes. Oh, I have to be like the singers who put the microphone right near. Welcome, friends. We're delighted to have you all here. We're going to start in about 2 minutes, but I just wanted to give you a heads up so that you can go ahead and continue to share words with your neighbors, exchange contact information with new friends you're making. I already have met 4 or 5 new friends that I look forward to staying in touch with. And
I've been on the list.
And gladly. And we'll start in 2 minutes. It is such a delight to see all of you here, and we're all really in for such a treat and a gift tonight to be gathered here in this beautiful space with dear Luke, who's come all the way from Ireland. So we'll start shortly. Good evening, friends. On behalf of the Baha'i community of Ottawa, I would like to welcome you tonight to this very special evening. This is the tour called Our Story is One, in honor of 10 very special women in Iran who continue to inspire. But it's also the story of many women around the world, hence the title, Our Story is One. I would like to thank you for being here tonight, for accepting invitation to come and to spend this evening with our very dear Luke, who's here from Ireland. First, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin people. And we'd like to honor all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who have inhabited and blessed, and inhabit and bless now still, these lands with their presence and their contributions. I would like to ask if everybody could please silence their phones. And I'd like to welcome you to take photos and videos, should you wish, to share on social media. Please feel free to hashtag the $, Our Story is One in your posts to raise awareness. Now I'd like to introduce dear Luke. Luke Slott is a singer and songwriter and composer from Ireland. Right, cute. How many times has that happened to each of us? Thank you for starting our evening with giggles. Luke Slott is a singer, songwriter, and composer from Ireland. Born into a family of artists in Dublin, he took to music at an early age, regularly watching both his father, who was a trumpet player, and his mother, an actress, performing in Ireland's concert halls and theaters. In his teenage years, he began writing songs and was quickly signed up by Sony Music, but later set out on his own as an independent artist. At the age of 21, Luke joined the Irish Baha'i community, and its message of the unity and humanity and the oneness of religion began to influence his music. As a solo artist, he has released several albums and has traveled extensively, given concerts and workshops in over 20 countries, from Europe to North America to the Middle East and the Pacific Islands. In June 2023, the Baha'i International Community at the United Nations launched a year-long campaign called Our Story is One, in honor of the 40th anniversary of the execution of 10 Baha'i women in Iran in 1983. The Our Story is One campaign seeks to create worldwide solidarity with all people in Iran who continue to struggle for freedom and equality today. Luke recently completed a 3-month tour of Europe and is now offering this very moving musical program across the United States and Canada. And we're so fortunate that he included Ottawa on the tour. The Our Story is One is dedicated to the people of Iran. I do have to say about my personal love and connection to Luke. His voice has filled our home over the years, and I have to also say many of the prayers that I have memorized are thanks to him. And I think many who are here tonight who listen to his music will attest to the impact that it has on their soul. So I also wanted to share some personal reflections about tonight, because the story you're about to hear is really a love story. It's a story so deeply heartfelt and a love so heartfelt and unwavering that giving up this love in order to live was unacceptable. This story of love and courage in the face of tyranny, of dignity in the face of intolerance and hatred exemplifies the lives of these incredible heroic women who have been a source of inspiration for the Baha'i community and others around the world for the last 4 years. But what could possibly explain this love, this commitment, this certitude? A message so powerful that for the followers of this faith, it would be imaginable to reject Baha'u'llah and his teachings and the spiritual gifts it provides for the mere comfort of material things. For these heroes were following in the footsteps of generations of Baha'is who sacrificed everything for the love they held in their hearts, for he who had been chosen by God to bring the transformative message that would usher in an era of peace and unity in their view. Who could turn their backs on this beautiful message that's touched so many hearts and to which we seek to align our lives? Not these women. This past year, and as I prepare to MC this evening, I've been thinking a lot about these ladies and what they have meant in my own personal life. I was only 14 years old when the news of their execution reached us in Canada. To hear that one of them was a mere couple of years older than me was quite shocking and left a mark on myself and many of my generation. Here we were in Canada, living our lives, practicing our faith, going to children's classes and youth gatherings, feasts and firesides. Meanwhile, in Iran, people of our age were losing their parents, and then the shock of the 10 women, one, a youth who had given up her life for her beliefs. It certainly gave us perspective, and I know that for myself and many of my generation, it helped to consolidate our faith, motivated us to share this beautiful teachings of this faith with our friends, to serve our communities, and for sure inspired many of our careers, including my own. May their stories inspire and embolden us to all work for peace and unity, equity, and social justice, so that we can bring their vision of a peaceful and just world and honor all peace-loving people in their honor. I would now like to remind you to please silence your phones and welcome Luke.
Well, thank you, Cheshmak. Thank you. I'm very touched and honored by your lovely introduction. And thank you all for being here. Before anything, I just wanted to express how delighted I am and how fortunate I feel to have been able to include Ottawa in this tour. Because I came to Ottawa for the first time just a little less than 2 years ago. I came here as part of a book tour. And I was collaborating with Adam and Karen Robarts, who I know that many of you here know. Adam had written a book, a beautiful book, a very special book called 19, in which he told the story and the lessons he learned from losing his 19-year-old son Hayden to brain cancer. And I read his book. I was very inspired by it. I wrote some songs inspired by the book. And Adam and I collaborated, and we went on a tour, which became the 19 musical book tour, in which Adam shared excerpts of his book, and I shared the songs inspired by that book. And we launched that tour right here at the Ottawa Baha'i Centre. And so it's very special to come back and be flooded by beautiful memories of embarking on a very special journey that I took with Adam and Karen across the United States and Canada just about 2 years ago. So I'm so grateful to have been invited back to Ottawa for this program, and I just would like to express my thanks to the Ottawa Baha'i community for having me here and for opening up the Baha'i Centre for this program. I know that I stand here alone, but behind the scenes there are so many people who have worked very hard to organize this event tonight, and events like this always take a lot of work that is often unseen, and I just would like to express my thanks to all of those who helped. And to thank you for coming. I'm delighted to see such a full house tonight. I only wish that I could stay longer in Ottawa, but I'm heading off on this tour. Next stop is Toronto, and then I travel down to the US and make my way westwards. And I really wanted to emphasize that this concert and this entire tour is actually just one small part of this much bigger, global, year-long campaign called Our Story is One. And this campaign, as Cheshmak mentioned, was launched last year on June 18th, marking the 40th anniversary of the execution of these 10 women who were put to death in Iran simply for the crime of having faith. And as Cheshmak's own personal testimony has so beautifully described to us, these women have left an indelible impression on people's hearts and people's lives. And so this campaign has been launched in their honor, but this campaign really has two purposes. The first purpose being to remember these women and to honor the values of freedom and equality, freedom of conscience, freedom of thought that they stood for, and to honor that, the sacrifice that they made for those values. And actually, if you go online and search for Our Story is One, and I hope you will, you'll see a whole this outpouring of artistic tributes to these women. If you go on Instagram or Facebook or any social media and look for Our Story is One, you'll see paintings and poetry and films and songs that have been created, inspired by these 10 women. And so that's the first purpose of this Our Story is One campaign. The second purpose is to express a sentiment of solidarity with people in Iran, particularly women in Iran, who continue, as we know, to struggle and strive for basic freedoms and human rights that we are lucky enough to often take for granted in this part of the world. And so what we're going to do this evening will be kind of an unusual kind of concert. We're going to take a kind of a musical journey through song and story and poetry and readings, and we're going to make our way little by little towards the story of these 10 women. And I wanted to begin by singing a song on the theme of hope, because this is really a heartbreaking story that we are going to travel on. But it's also a story of great hope and a vision of hope that was so powerful that these women sacrificed their lives for that vision of the hope of a better future. And so with that in mind, I would like to begin with a song on this theme of hope. You know, when we look around the world these days, it's often easy to lose hope. We see so many wars and injustices and corruption, oppression of innocent people. It's often easy to give up. And I want to suggest that it takes a certain kind of courage to hold on to a vision of hope and to really believe that the world can be better if we work to make it better. And these 10 women were a remarkable example of that courage and that foresight of a vision of a better future. So this song is dedicated to all people who are striving and working and believing in the possibility of a better future, even if the world sometimes looks like a desolate, barren wasteland. This is called Wasteland. I made you a promise, and I don't want to break it.
But you know I found it hard to believe that we had what it takes. And though I may be wrong in all my speculations, I can still recall the pain when we stood with our souls stark naked. You made me a promise, and it's not like you to fake it. But you know I found it hard to conceive the time it would take. You may prove me wrong with all your new creations. Yeah, I can still recall your face when you told me one day we'll make it. And this wasteland will blossom like heaven, and all the colors we've painted here will merge into one. And there will be no religion as we know it today. No more endless division, just love, hope, and faith in the wasteland, in the wasteland, in the wasteland. I saw you down at the landfill with the photographs you sold, and you loved them like a child, though your face was getting old. And though all we have is a dust heap, we'll make it beautiful yet. And when the breeze of spring comes back, this cold winter we'll forget. And this wasteland will blossom like heaven, and all the colors we've painted here will merge into one. And there will be no decision that we won't all make as one. No more senseless collision when these fickle wars are done. No, there will be no division, no, of sex, color, class, or creed. Just one world to belong to, and one color of blood to bleed. In the wasteland, in the wasteland, in the wasteland. About 1 hour and 20 minutes. One thing that's very important to know from the beginning is that these 10 women were executed
for their faith in the context of an extraordinarily rich heritage of freedom of belief, of freedom of conscience. And so as a point of departure for our journey, I wanted to tell you a little bit about a peculiar ancient treasure that I once saw in the British Museum in London. And if you ever go to the British Museum in London, you will no doubt see this ancient treasure, which is one of the most significant artifacts of the ancient world, and it's on display for the public in London. It's a large cylindrical stone tablet about this big, called the Cyrus cylinder. And on this stone tablet there is an inscription engraved into the stone, and this inscription was once described as the world's first charter of human rights. And it was created by an Iranian whose name was Cyrus, Cyrus the Great, or as Iranians know him in their own language, Kurosh. Cyrus the Great was the founder of the ancient Persian Empire, the precursor to what we know today as Iran. And to this day, Cyrus the Great, Kurosh, is considered by many people in different parts of the world, of different cultures and different nations, as one of the most noble kings who ever lived, because of the fact that he created an empire that was explicitly built on the principle of freedom of belief and the protection of individual rights. And so long before the Geneva Conventions and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights after the Second World War, an ancient Iranian king proclaimed across his empire the world's first charter of human rights. And under Cyrus, this charter protected people's rights to practice their own religion, to express their beliefs, and to preserve their own languages and their own cultures. And this charter guaranteed the people that the king himself would protect that right from anyone who tried to violate it. And the heritage of Cyrus the Great has been described as a heritage of human understanding, of tolerance, of courage, of compassion, and above all, of human liberty. So a very beautiful, admirable heritage, not only for the people of Iran, but a beautiful heritage for the world. Well, by the 1970s, over 2,500 years had passed since Cyrus the Great had founded his empire. And Persia, or Iran as we know it today, had gone through a history of ups and downs and highs and lows that would make the world's most extreme roller coaster feel like a walk in the park. This was a history of dynasties rising up and crashing to the ground, of religions being born, spreading, of peoples conquering other peoples. And this extraordinarily rich legacy of art and architecture, of science and medicine and philosophy had blossomed out of Iran. And that legacy continues to exert a very profound influence on the wider world today. In fact, a couple of years ago, I read that the #1 best-selling author in all of North America is the English translations of an Iranian poet. And his name is Rumi.
Oh, yes.
Well, by the 1970s, the people of Iran had also watched as many of their rulers throughout the ages had drifted from the example of Cyrus, sometimes into corruption, and at times even into periods of tyranny. And so in 1978 and 1979, certain groups of people in Iran rose up in a revolution to overthrow the Shah, the king of Iran. But the ultimate result of this revolution was not what most Iranian people were truly hoping for. Because when the Shah finally accepted defeat, there appeared in Iran a power vacuum like never before. And this power vacuum was swiftly and ruthlessly filled by extremist fanatics who claimed that they possessed divine authority to rule over the people. And among these new leaders, it seemed as if the very memory of their ancestor Cyrus had simply vanished from their minds. From their pulpits, they openly proclaimed that the mere notion of human rights was a Western concept, incompatible with their society. And from 1979 onwards, under these new leaders, the people of Iran found themselves under extreme freedom, extreme restriction and the loss of their basic freedoms. Artists, musicians like myself, writers, journalists, educators, all found themselves being arrested, often tortured, and invariably placed behind bars. Women, as a group comprising half the population, found themselves suddenly under extreme restriction and systematic oppression. And there is a very poignant short poem by the Iranian poet Halu, which describes this strange reversal of fortunes that the people of Iran experienced in 1979. And I'd like to ask Faith if she would share this short poem with us.
February 1979. Amidst the chaos of the revolution, a prisoner wrote on the wall in Evin prison, "People, be aware. Very soon, the Ayatollahs will topple the monarchy and prisons will turn into universities." Many years passed, and I kept asking myself, what about all those nice promises? When is it going to come true? Then I landed in prison, and I saw with my own eyes students and scholars everywhere. That's how the prisons turned into universities.
Thank you. So I would like to dedicate the next song to the great heroes of Iran today, who have not forgotten their ancestor Cyrus and who continue, often at great danger to their own lives, to stand up to defend human rights in Iran. And I have something I'd like to show you. I have with me, I've brought here tonight a miniature replica of the Cyrus cylinder. And I thought I would just pass this around the room as I play. As I'm playing the song, you can take a look at it and pass it on if you like. So this song is dedicated to a few particular people. Firstly, I'd like to dedicate this song to the great Iranian lawyer, Nasrin Sotoudeh. And also to the Nobel Peace Prize winning defender of human rights, Shirin Ebadi. And also to Narges Mohammadi, who you may have heard just last year was also awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her work defending human rights, and particularly women's rights, and who remains to this day in prison. In this song, I ask a question. Where did all the lovers go? The lovers of goodness, of truth, of beauty. Where did they go? Where did they run to? When did all the heroes die? And then the answer comes. Well, didn't you look behind the walls of the prison, behind those bars? That's where they are. This is called In the Shade of Paradise, and it's dedicated to all those heroes in Iran
who remain behind bars. There is a prison cell in old Tehran, and within a woman there, a child grows strong. There is a prison in old Shiraz of poems unknown, and from its invisible floors of stone, a warning road. When the towers in the sky fall and the river changes course and the powers up on high give in to the call, you will hear the people sigh. Where did all the lovers run to? When did all the heroes die? Or didn't you look behind these walls? They live on a plain of sacrifice. There is a rose garden in Esfahan, and in it the nightingales sing their midnight song. When the towers in the sky fall and the ocean pulls its tide and the powers up on high give in to the call, you will hear the people cry. Where did all the lovers run to? When did all the heroes die? Well, didn't you look behind these bars? They live on a plain of sacrifice. What did all the mothers come to? Where do all the sisters hide? Well, didn't you look behind these veils? They live in a sea of tearful eyes. Where did all the lovers run to? When did all the heroes die? Well, didn't you look behind these walls? They live in the shade of paradise. In the shade of paradise. In the shade the shade of paradise. There is a prison cell in old Tehran. And so, in 1979, the people of Iran entered this new chapter of their history. And today, some 45 years later, this chapter is regarded by many Iranians as one of the darkest chapters in the history of their homeland. Apart from targeting artists and writers and musicians, women, lawyers, philosophers, scholars, intellectuals, the new government of Iran began immediately clamping down on Iran's religious minorities, Iranian Christians, Iranian Jews, Iranian Zoroastrians, and Iranian Muslims who disagreed with the new government were all targeted and harassed, often being made the objects of the most brutal atrocities at the hands of their own government. But among all these different groups which were targeted by the new Iranian leaders, there was one particular group towards which the government became especially vicious. And this was Iran's largest religious minority, the Baha'i community. And I'm not going to explain in detail what the Baha'i community is. That's not the reason that we're here tonight. But there is a short saying of Baha'u'llah, who was the founder of the Baha'i faith, and who was himself an Iranian, that says that it is better to be killed than to kill. It is better to be killed than to kill. And I think this short saying speaks volumes about the way in which the Baha'is in Iran have responded to the cruelty that they have been subjected to by their own government. Because after the 1979 revolution, as the new government gained power, Baha'is all over Iran were arrested simply for being Baha'is. Many of them were imprisoned, often tortured. Their homes, their family homes, were confiscated or sometimes simply set on fire. Even their sacred places and cemeteries were demolished and desecrated. And new laws were enacted by the government, officially dismissing Baha'is from their jobs and expelling their children from schools and universities. But despite this cruelty that the Baha'is in Iran have received, the response of this community to this persecution has been actually noted internationally for its unique character. In fact, this response to persecution has been so unusual that it has been studied by academics, by sociologists, and by government institutions all around the world. And it's been given a special name called constructive resilience. And I love this phrase, constructive resilience. It kind of speaks of a sense of empowerment and building something and strength in the face of great adversity. It's a very affirmative phrase, constructive resilience. And one of the most interesting examples of this constructive resilience is the response, the way in which the Baha'is in Iran have responded to the denial of their right to education.
And the story is a very interesting one, actually, and it was actually the subject of a documentary that was made by an Iranian journalist several years ago called Maziar Bahari. Perhaps some of you know Maziar Bahari. Maziar Bahari is not a Baha'i, he is a journalist, and he was imprisoned in Iran for his journalism. And when he came out of prison, he wanted to tell the story of this community in Iran and this unusual response to persecution. And he made this documentary. It was called To Light a Candle, although sometimes it's known as Education is Not a Crime. And the story goes something like this. In the years after 1979, as more and more Baha'is were fired from their jobs and expelled from schools and universities, the young people in that community were growing up without any prospect of a future, without any prospect of developing their talents or of intellectual development, and really without any prospect of fulfilling their dreams. You know, we all have our dreams of the future, and this community was being strangled in its dreams and aspirations. And so, in response to this situation, certain volunteer professors and teachers, many of whom had lost their own jobs, began to offer secret university-level courses in the homes of these young people. And these professors would smuggle textbooks into the family homes of these young people, and they would sit with them at their kitchen tables, and they would deliver to them university-level courses in engineering and accountancy and art and law and music and medicine and science and education, anything you can think of. And these young people fully understood that for all their studies in these homemade classes, they would never take an exam, they would never get a qualification, and they would never get a job in the field that they were studying. They fully understood this, and yet they kept coming again and again and again, simply for the love of learning, the love of knowledge and understanding and the enrichment of the human spirit and the human intellect. And these classes started popping up in family homes all over Iran, and this secret network of teachers and students became, for all intents and purposes, a kind of underground university, spread throughout the entire country and completely invisible to the authorities. And it became known as the BIHE, the Baha'i Institute of Higher Education. Well, eventually, the authorities found out about the BIHE, and they launched a systematic campaign to destroy it. Family homes were raided by military troops. Teachers and students were arrested and thrown in prison. Textbooks were confiscated and burned, and every effort was made to shut down the BIHE. But you know, by the time that the Iranian authorities found out about the BIHE, it was too late, because so had the rest of the world. And the BIHE had been noted in the international academic world and was being recognized by other universities for its outstandingly high standards of education. And to this day, over 110 universities here in North America, in Europe, in Australia, have actually granted scholarships to students at the BIHE and have brought them to their campuses to continue their studies and actually develop their careers. And I've had the great privilege on my own travels in different countries of meeting young people who began their studies in secrecy in Iran and are now living beautiful, flourishing lives, using their talents to contribute to the countries in which they now live. And so I wanted to dedicate the next song to the teachers and the students of the BIHE. And this song is also a kind of a reminder that there are often very wonderful, constructive things place in the world that we don't know about. But they're there, building and building, but they're hidden, as if they're behind a veil. This is called 100,000 Veils. Come down and walk these roads around the city of Tehran, where 7 candles burn. Follow me, all you who claim to be possessed of charity, down to the crimson sea. 100,000 veils have covered the sun, and darkest clouds have blocked and blackened the blue sky. Did you hear the fate of those who educate, who even in the grave find no respite from hate? Have you seen the youth who gave their lives for truth? That girl who kissed the noose and welcomed all abuse. 100,000 suns have fallen to earth, with blasts that block the ears from hearing the new song. 100,000 veils have covered the truth. How many mothers' cries are lost in the tumult? There is no war to fight. You have no sacred right, no holy book to cite, to make these wrongs seem right. Does it so offend to want this world to mend, to walk in hope to the end, and see each man a friend? Come down and walk these roads around the cities of Iran, which boast so much to man.
the government of Ireland. But when you think of the government being vociferously anti-Israel and was talking about, was giving its condolences, absurd condolences with the death of Raisi, who's called the Butcher of Iran, why isn't Ireland more, forefront in terms of criticizing the Iranian government instead of focusing on
Do you know
Israel?
what? I would love to talk to you afterwards, but I just feel it's a little jarring to change direction in the middle of the story. Maybe we could have, what is your name?
Josh.
Josh. Nice to meet you, Josh. Maybe after the story, we could speak together. I would love that. I would love to hear what you have to say, and obviously I don't represent the Irish government. But I would love to speak to you afterwards. Thank you. So. I'm sure, no doubt you are aware, most of you, of the Woman Life Freedom movement, which erupted into the global spotlight a little less than 2 years ago. After a young woman in Iran, a 22-year-old woman named Gina Mahsa Amini, died while in police custody after having been arrested and really violently assaulted by the Iranian authorities for wearing her headscarf incorrectly. And Gina Mahsa Amini's death sparked this nationwide movement all over Iran, which then spread all over the world, a movement to raise awareness about the issue of women's rights and the oppression of women in Iran for the last several decades. And this movement has been led by women and supported by men and children too. And it has really highlighted this issue in the global consciousness. But interestingly, this cause for women's freedom and women's rights in Iran today actually has a history that reaches further back into Iranian history than many people today realize. And these women who are fighting for their rights and for basic freedoms today, freedoms such as the freedom to choose how to dress. These women actually have, in their own Iranian heritage, a remarkable predecessor, an extraordinary woman who lived in the 19th century and whose name was Tahirih. And Tahirih was a kind of a phenomenon of 19th century Iran. She was a gifted poet, a scholar. She was a theologian, a philosopher, and an extraordinarily powerful public speaker. And she also happened to be one of the leading figures in the very early days of the Baha'i faith. And to this day, Tahirih is regarded by many people in many different countries of the world as one of the greatest women in human history. And she is looked to by many people as an example of courage and commitment to the cause for women's dignity and freedom and women's rights. And so I've written a song that is a tribute to this woman, Tahirih, which I would love to share with you. But before we get to the song, I wanted to tell you a little story about Tahirih, and hopefully by the time we get to the song, hopefully we'll feel like we know her a little bit better. So for this part of our musical journey, we're going to travel back in time, just for a moment. So I'd like to invite you, just for a moment, to close your eyes and use your imagination. And we're going to travel about 175 years back in time to the year 1848. 1848 was a peculiar year in world history. It was a year that witnessed this cascading chain of social movements across the world, particularly across Europe and across Latin America. These movements of people rising up, calling out for change, calling out for justice, calling out corruption, calling out for change in society. And this year, 1848, became known as the springtime of the people. But amidst all these revolutionary movements sweeping across the world, in the summer of that same year, there was a quieter but equally historic event that took place in a little corner of the Iranian countryside. This was a gathering of less than 100 people. And at this gathering, an incident occurred that shook Iranian society to its core. And from what I've been learning about modern Iranian history, I think that Iran has not yet recovered from this incident that took place 175 years ago. And at the center of this incident was this woman called Tahirih. So just to give you to give you a sense of how serious this incident was, it's important to know that Tahirih, as was the custom of her time, and just like all the women around her and in her society, lived her life with a veil covering her face in public at all times. And this was a custom that was so ingrained in 19th century Persian society that the very notion of ever seeing a woman's naked face in public was just unthinkable. People probably just didn't even think of it. Well, at this gathering in the Iranian countryside in the summer of 1848, Tahirih, like a bolt of lightning striking at the very core of Iranian society, appeared before that gathering, unveiled. And this act of defiance to the social norms of her time and her society was so incomprehensibly scandalous, so horrifying to the people around her, that a wave of panic rippled through that gathering. It was as if they were witnessing the very fabric of their society unraveling before their eyes. And there is an eyewitness account of this incident, which was recorded by a man who was there at the time. And I'd like to ask Sapa to share this account with us now. Thank you, Sapa.
Suddenly, the figure of Tahirih, adorned and unveiled, appeared before the eyes of the assembled companions. Consternation immediately seized the entire gathering. All stood aghast before the sudden and most unexpected apparition. To behold her face unveiled was to them inconceivable. Even to gaze at her shadow was a thing they deemed improper. Quietly, silently, and with the utmost dignity, Tahirih stepped forward. Her unruffled serenity sharply contrasted with the affrighted countenances of those who were gazing upon her face. Fear, anger, and bewilderment stirred the depths of their souls. This day is the day of festivity and universal rejoicing, she announced. The day on which the fetters of the past are burst asunder. I am the blast of the trumpet. I am the call of the bugle.
Thank you, Sapa. So, this woman, Tahirih, she was like a comet that blazed across the horizon of Iran 175 years ago, and in many ways set an example, set a standard of courage for the women of Iran who continue to fight for freedom today. They're, in fact, in response to one of the many death threats that Tahirih received in her life, she once famously proclaimed, "You can kill me as soon as you like, but you cannot stop the emancipation of women." Well, this comet blazed so brightly that eventually the authorities of her time caught up with Tahirih, and in 1852 she was arrested by a group of military officers who strangled her to death and threw her body down a well and buried her under stones and rubble, hoping that she would be forgotten forever. Well, she was not forgotten, and I'd like to now sing a song in her honor. And as I sing the opening chords of this song, I'd like to invite Faith to share with us some words of tribute to Tahirih, written by a man of her time.
May future generations be enabled to present a worthy account of a life which her contemporaries have failed adequately to recognize. May future historians perceive the full measure of her influence and record the unique services this great woman has rendered to her land and its people. May the followers of the faith which she served so well strive to follow her example, recount her deeds, collect her writings, unfold the secret of her talents, and establish her for all time in the memory and affections of the peoples and kindreds of the earth.
Close all your books and enter this school. I'll show you the secret of a new golden rule. Lay down your letters and run to the field. Your sword in this battle is the tongue that you wield. Oh, Tahirih, Tahirih, you were the eye that saw far away, far away. You took my breath and my heart away on the day when the heavens did roar and the earth cried out for more. You were the moon in the cold winter sky, the rays of your mind, the solace of my eye. And you were the blast to raise up the dead, the sound of your voice ever ringing in my head. Oh, Tahirih, Tahirih, you were the eye that saw far away, far away. You tore the veil from my heart away on the day when the oceans did boil and the sun kissed the soil. Chase every demon, expose every lie. Welcome the day of a great sober sigh. Put on your dress for the wedding once more, and cast me a smile as you pass through the door. Oh, Tahirih, Tahirih, you are the wing for this broken, lost bird, the one lonely letter that makes well the word. So Godspeed the day when your trumpet blast will be heard, and lo, the dead will rise. The ones who sowed this veil of lies will fall away before your face. Tahirih, Tahirih, where do you lie? Beneath stones and rubble, or in the glistening of my eye. Tahirih, Tahirih, where do you lie? Are you not the object of every man's sigh?
Thank you. So at this point in our journey, I would like to now, I'd like to draw our attention to these 10 women that are being remembered this year on the 40th anniversary of their execution. And I would just like to take a brief moment to introduce each of them by name. This is Izzat. Nusrat. Tahirih, named after the great Tahirih of the 19th century. Zani. Mahshid. Akhtar. Shaheen was known as Shirin. Sini. Roya. And finally, Muna. And these 10 women were people like us. They were living their lives, looking forward to their futures, dreaming their dreams. Most of them were in their 20s at the time of their execution. Several of them had been college students. Some of them were nurses who worked very devotedly in the hospitals in Iran, tending to sick and injured people. One of them was a mother in her 50s. That's Izzat on the bottom left here. And another one was Izzat's 23-year-old daughter, Roya, on the top left, mother and daughter together. And throughout 1982 and 1983, each of these 10 women were arrested and were charged by the authorities with a long list of crimes. One of their crimes was teaching children's classes I'm sure some of you are familiar with children's classes. It's something like Sunday school, where children will come together once a week and they will learn stories and songs, they'll play games and say prayers and learn about virtues and what it means to be kind and truthful and fair and how to share and these children's classes, they are one of the standard activities of Baha'i communities around the world that are offered to children of all backgrounds to have a wholesome weekly environment to go to. We have these children's classes in neighbourhoods around Ireland, and I'm sure you have them here in Ottawa. But these children's classes were a crime in Iran. The younger women in this group were charged with the crime of being unmarried. This too was a crime. They were all accused of being spies sent by foreign powers into Iran to infiltrate the government and destroy their own country. And the list gets more and more preposterous as you go through. But at the top of this list was their greatest crime. And that was the crime of simply believing in the Baha'i faith. And for this crime, without any legal representation and without any proper trial procedure, these 10 women were imprisoned for months on end, often being subjected to periods of solitary confinement, and sometimes even physical torture. At times, these women were chained face down on wooden tables and were whipped on their backs and on the soles of their feet, sometimes 100 lashings at a time, with a wire cable. And throughout all of this abuse, these women were asked again and again to renounce their personal convictions. Again and again they were asked and asked and asked. And again, all 10 women refused and refused and refused. And eventually, on June 18th, 1983, the order came down from on high to bring their imprisonment to an end. And I'm going to ask Sapa to share with us some eyewitness accounts of that day, 40 years, almost 41 years ago. Thank you, Sapa.
It was late afternoon on 18 June when the prison visit was over. Shortly afterwards, the guards called the 10 women and ordered them to board a bus. They were Mona, Roya and her mother Izzat, Shireen, Zamin, Mahshid, Simin, Akhtar, Tahirih and Nusrat. The bus driver who transferred them from Adilabad to the execution site was greatly affected by the bravery and strength of the women. And we recalled that moment as follows. I thought they were going to be released until we came up to the gate of the security check. That was where we found out that the ladies were going to be executed. All the way there, they were chanting. They were all cheerful and proud. Another witness was one of the executioners who put the rope around their necks. He told the mother of one of the girls, We gave them the opportunity to recant up to the last minute. First, we hanged the older women. And then it was the turn of the young girls. One by one, in front of the rest. The youngest was the last. We thought they would be so frightened that they would recant. We said to them, just say once that you are not a Baha'i, and we will let you go. But none of them did.
So for the next song, I wanted to sing a short poetic verse, which comes from the writings of Baha'u'llah, and which I've just set it to a melody. And this is quite a well-known verse from the Baha'i writings, and I have no doubt in my mind that these 10 women would have known this verse, probably by heart. And I think that these words were probably a source of great inner strength to them as they went through their ordeal, and also to their family members at that time. This is a verse about fortitude and patience in times of trial and tribulation, and it's called The Sign of Love. And as I play the opening chords, I'd like to ask Faith to share with us some memories which come from some members of the families of these women when they received the news on July 10th. Thank you, Faith.
From Zarin's mother. They let me go into the morgue. I never thought I would be able to carry on living after that moment. What I saw in that room and what I went through that day are indescribable. When I went in, oh my God, I saw 10 angels sleeping motionless next to each other. I knew all of them. I had been in the same prison with them. There were mother and daughter, Izzat and Roya, lying there. What strength kept me from breathing and on my feet, I don't know. I visited all 10 angels, found Zareen, embraced her cold body, and put my cheek against her delicate and cold face. I kissed the mark of the rope on her beloved neck on behalf of all of her family. Her face looked natural and tranquil. From Mona's sister, the pain I felt that day was the same as when I heard the news of my father's martyrdom. I thought I would go mad. The prospect was so painful that psychologically I refused to accept it. Instead, I imagined the day when she would return home. Her footsteps, her laughter, her lovely voice. I imagined embracing and kissing my beautiful sister. I wanted to share the pain of our father's martyrdom with her, and I needed to talk to her about the painful days when we were all in prison. I wanted her had plans for us to be together and support our mother. So many thoughts rushed through my head in the moment when I heard the tragic news of the martyrdoms. I hoped that someone would come in and say it wasn't true. I was still kneeling beside Mona. It was a bitter experience seeing my sister for the last time without a glass partition to separate us. I kissed her cold cheek and said goodbye to her. With all my heart, I wished she would open her eyes and let me see her smile one last time. But I knew she was observing us from above with an eternal smile, and one teardrop would break her heart. Thus, my beautiful Mona, I smile for the love you had for Baha'u'llah and humankind. May the world discover why you sacrificed your life.
Oh, son of man, for everything there is a sign. The sign of love is fortitude. The sign of love is patience. Under my decree and under my trial, O Son of Man, for everything there is a sign. The sign of love is fortitude. The sign of love is patience. Under my decree and under my trial, under my decree and under my trial.
So some of you may have noticed in one of the earlier songs, I sang a lyric, I sang a line that referred to a girl. I sang a line that referred to a girl, that girl who kissed the noose. Well, that girl was Mona Mahmoud-Nejad. Mona was the youngest of the 10 women. She was just 17 years old at the time of her execution. She was, as you can see, a vibrant, joyful, happy youth who played guitar and loved dancing and was a teacher of children's classes. This was her way of being of service to people by helping to give their children a safe, wholesome environment and teaching them about virtues through songs and stories and games. And she loved doing this. And you know, over this past, well, nearly a year through this Our Story is One campaign, as I've been learning about the story of these 10 women, which I didn't know before this year. This year has actually been very educational for me in learning this story and reflecting on it myself. I've been so really kind of overwhelmed by the courage, the extraordinary inner strength of these 10 women. They endured something that most of us will never in our lives have to endure. But the courage of Mona, 17-year-old Mona, is something really, truly remarkable. Because on the night of their execution, when the 10 women were brought from the prison cell to the public square in their city, Shiraz, to be hanged, all in a single night, one after the other, 17-year-old Mona insisted on being the last to go, because she knew how painful it would be for her 9 friends to have to watch as a 17-year-old girl was hanged. She didn't want them to see that, so she wanted to spare them the trauma of having to watch that. And she also wanted to be there for them, to stand and support them in their final moments. But the maturity, the profound maturity of Mona in making this decision is something, it's hard to comprehend when I think of this decision that she made, because this decision meant that not only did Mona herself have to stand and watch as her 9 friends were put to death, one after the other, before her eyes, but it also meant that when her turn came, she had no friend left to stand and support her. No friend to look into her eyes one last time with love. No one to whisper a word of friendship to her in her final moments. She had to go to the executioner completely alone. And when the executioner put his rope around Mona's neck, she stood up tall, and she raised her head high, and she kissed the noose. And I'm going to ask Sapa to share with us a memory from Mona's mother about one of the last conversations they ever had. Thank you, Sapa.
She looked into my eyes and said, "Mama, I know I will be killed. I just want to tell you what I am planning to do. If you don't And let me tell you now, you will lose this chance forever. And then you will be sorry that you didn't let me talk. Now, do you want me to tell you or not? Haltingly, I agreed. Okay, tell me. When I held my elbow and started to walk. You know, Mama, the place where they're going to hang us is probably going to be higher than the ground, so they can put the rope around our neck. I will first get permission to kiss the hands of whoever puts the rope around my neck. You know, Mama, I think they will definitely let me do that. I will then explain that we, Baha'is, are not allowed to kiss anyone's hand except the hands of our murderer. That hand must be kissed, because it will speed up our journey towards our beloved. Then I will kiss the rope I am to be hanged with. Then I will ask for their permission again and say this prayer. As she was standing in front of me, she closed her eyes, crossed her hands on her chest, and in a very spiritual manner, like a lover singing a song for her beloved, she chanted a prayer. Then she opened her eyes and said, "And then I will pray for the true happiness of all humankind. And I will say goodbye to this mortal life and leave to go to my adored one." I looked at her, but I couldn't see her. I heard her, but I couldn't comprehend what she was saying. On the one hand, my emotional attachment to her was frightening me. On the other hand, she had taken me to a beautiful spiritual world. 10 days later, she was killed.
Thank you, Sam. So this final act of Mona's life has always struck me ever since I heard this story. Why did she do this? Why did she kiss the noose? And I think that perhaps in a way the noose represented her sacrifice. It represented everything that she was willing to give her life for. Everything that she was unwilling to compromise on. It represented her commitment to her faith, her commitment to her love of God and of humanity. And just like her ancestor, Cyrus the Great, it represented her unbreakable dedication to freedom of belief for all. And so, for this last song, I've written the lyrics from the point of view of this noose. And I'm imagining the scenario. These 10 women are brought from the prison cell to the public square of Shiraz. The executioner is there, perhaps there are some authorities present to oversee the event. And in the song, I imagine that of all those present, the only being who actually sees the truth of these women, that sees the only entity that sees their heart and their character and their goodness and their inner beauty is this little rope, this noose. And the noose falls in love with these women and considers it the greatest privilege to be so close to them at this moment. And the noose calls out to these women saying, "You told me that love is queen, and freedom is life. And I held you so close to me, and I longed for nothing more than to die with you." So this is called "To Die With You." And it's dedicated to Roya, and Mashi, Mona, Shiri, Zara, Izzat, Simeon, Nusrat, Tahirih, and Akhtar. I was there when the heavens bowed their heads and the earth stood full. With her eyes awash with red, I touched your hair. In a moment out of time, how could I ask for more? How could I dare demand a sign? I saw you there on the coldest prison mile. How did you stay so fair? How did you find the grace to smile? I kissed your hair while the moon was cleft in two. I had no need for prayer. Every thread of my soul was tied to you. We danced in 1,000 worlds neath the brilliant blue sky. And the rays of the sun paled before the gleam in your eye. You told me that love is queen and that freedom is life. And I held you so close to me, and I longed for nothing more than to die with you. I was there when a million trumpets blew, all but the dead could hear. All the rivers of life returned to you. I touched your lips in a moment of despair. Your breath was a rose-scented breeze through the dead desert air. We danced in 1,000 worlds beneath the brilliant blue sky. All the wealth of the world was dust before the gleam in your eye. You told me that love is queen and that freedom is life. Then you whispered so close to me, and I longed for nothing. We danced in 1,000 worlds beneath the star-sprinkled sky, and the face of the moon pale before the light in your eye. You told me that love is queen and that freedom is life, and you came so close to me, and I longed for nothing more than to die with you, to die with you.
ماشي نصرت عزت احتسمی مونا زاری رویا شیرین طاهری محشی نصرت عزت احتسمی مونا زاری رویا journey. And I was thinking about, what we might take away from this journey. Could the end of this journey be the start of something new for all of us here tonight? And something that I think is very important to take home with us is the fact that even though outwardly this story is a very tragic story, it's a story of these 10 innocent women whose lives, whose futures were stolen from them under totally unjust circumstances. I think something that's very important to remember is that inwardly, underneath the surface, this is actually a story of extraordinary courage and inner strength. And it's the kind of courage that we can all draw inspiration from in our own lives as we face the difficulties and tribulations of our own. And so I thought, as something to take home, I thought I would offer to you all a question. And it's just a private question for you to take with you and to think about in your own time. And the question is, what do these 10 women inspire me to do? These women, they accepted their fate with extraordinary dignity and courage. But the fact was they wanted to live. They wanted to continue what they were doing. And these were women who truly believed this. Our story is one, in a very profound way. And they were trying to live that vision of a better world, a world where people are truly united, where people truly strive to understand each other and live together in harmony. And these women were living their short lives by doing things like educating children in their spare time, teaching children about virtues and character, and educating the next generation of humanity. They were devoted to their jobs in ways that they were trying to be helpful to the world. And they're not here anymore, at least not in this world. But we're still here, and we can continue what they were doing. We can continue their story by striving to make the world a better place. And so I hope this question stimulates some thought in your own lives about how we can each contribute to a better world, a more peaceful world, a more fair world, a more loving world, a world
where people recognize that our story as a human family is one. And so on that note, I would like to sing one very short final song in the Irish style with no guitar, just voice. And it's a song about universal human solidarity and ultimately about wishing each other well wherever we come from and wherever we are. This is called Song for My Brother.
Oh, brother, well, I wish you on your journey homeward. Oh, may you treasure every step along the way. So I will see you where the river meets the ocean, underneath the shelter of the greatest name. Oh, may your heart and soul ascend unto the kingdom. Peace be upon you and upon your family. And may the gentle winds of heaven's revelation breathe upon you breezes of eternity. Oh, brother, we are but the drops of one great ocean. Oh, we are leaves upon the branches of one tree. One heart between us, and between us only one soul, to sing aloud the sweetest songs of unity.
My heart is just beating so hard right now. I feel absolutely speechless. Luke, you have, I don't know what to say, but these humble words, I think I speak for everyone here. When I say that this was incredibly moving, that your ability to weave eloquent storytelling with your beautiful music and your soulful voice has brought the story of these women and the struggle that they represent that continues to happen around the world has come to life. And for me personally, I found the way that you weave their lives into past, present, and future particularly important. You grounded their life and their legacy into the ancient legacy from which they came from. The legacy of Cyrus the Great and his Charter of Rights and Freedoms of 2,500 years ago. and how that truly is representative of the people of Iran. That is our legacy. And how that connects to the present and the continued struggle for rights and freedoms, most recently expressed in the Women Like Freedom Movement. But you didn't leave it there, because this story is very heartbreaking and very somber. But you started off this evening with hope, and you finished off this evening with hope. And the way you ended, you took us back to the beginning of this evening, because you reminded us that the tragedy of their death is not the story, but there was purpose in their pain. There was purpose in that tragedy. And what they envisioned was this wasteland that you spoke of, being transformed into a blossom-filled heaven, where we all abide with each other in brotherhood and peace and unity. And so that's where I really want to leave tonight, because for me as well, that is their legacy. And you've left us with a question that I encourage everyone to take very seriously, because there's about 80 people here tonight. And I can tell you from my personal experience and the journey that I took, they played such a big role in my own life. My trips to Afghanistan, my work in peace building and conflict resolution. Everything that I do in my life is remembering these 10 women and seeking to make a difference, because had they lived, they would have done so as well. And so now that all of us here tonight have been introduced to these women through this beautiful journey, I would love to think that you will leave tonight and really think about how this has inspired you, and how you will walk your days from tonight onwards, seeking to make the world a better place. In no matter how small or big that is, it could be the love you give to someone in your home, in your community, in your neighborhood, in the world. And I think it would honor these women, and I think it would also warm your heart to know that all of us here tonight will take up that challenge and perhaps even reach out to you and let you know how tonight and your beautiful introduction to these precious women has planted continued seeds of change in Ottawa and beyond. So, oh my gosh, Luke, thank you. I love you so much. So friends, this brings to conclusion this beautiful evening that I don't want to have end, but alas. There are refreshments and socializing for the next hour, or whatever part of that you're able to stay for. There's a washroom at the back there and another one downstairs. The refreshments are down below. I would invite all of you to feel free to come and meet dear Luke. There's many of us here, so please take a moment and then.
Maybe I'll just take a break.
Yeah,
And then
I was going to say, yeah.
Maybe I will just slip away. Take a
Please
little
go
bit.
ahead.
And I really would love to spend some time with you all and
Yeah.
get to know you better. So thank you all.
And please take an opportunity to meet each other. There's, what a beautiful group of friends we have here tonight. So, Luke, John, please go and have your best.
pizza, right? Yes, pizza on the left. And we still having that. Just like phone call, you see the phone call, you never know the accident, like that. How are you doing? Are you going to help me? Excellent. Very good. So you can move this closer so you don't have to carry it, huh? Yeah, you can put all those, maybe half of 200.